Men and women, some I recognized from movies and music. Some seemed too young. Others watched as if it was fun, and did he laugh? Like that was the most normal thing in the world. He hesitated, swallowing hard. I didn't know how to escape. And that was the point. Once you're in, you're in. His voice was firm but hollow. A few days after the party, I received a call from a blocked number, and all I heard was, "Hope you had fun, Fresh Prince." Then they hung up. He felt it was simply a crazy prank until a package arrived at his office. It was unmarked and contained a flash drive. I nearly didn't look, but I did, and it was tape from that night of me sitting on a couch, definitely out of it. I don't remember being that out of it, but I was giggling at something I couldn't remember when I heard Diddy's voice behind the camera say, "That's how we keep him." Will testified that the fear he felt in that moment was unlike anything he'd ever experienced, and I recognized I wasn't invited to that party. I was initiated, and he said that's when the manipulation began. I'd get invites to more parties, which I declined, and suddenly movie jobs I was in talks for were gone. People I worked with for years stopped calling, and accusations emerged circulating about me being gay, unstable, and unfaithful. I knew what it was. Diddy didn't need to say it. He just made it apparent that silence was the cost of peace. And so for years, Will said nothing, smiling through interviews, brushed off rumors and focused on work. But every time I read a news item about someone else speaking out, Cassie Dawn Richard, even Meek Mill's name was dragged into this. I thought, if they're speaking, why am I staying quiet? He looked around the courtroom. Diddy didn't just damage people's jobs, he scared them. Telling the truth and that Will said was what finally led him to court. Will paused, looked at the jury, and leaned closer to the microphone. It wasn't just a video. That was the leash, he claimed. From that point on, everything he did seemed like it had strings connected to it. He added that calls would come through his agent, invitations to events, meeting projects. When he said no, things would move. Behind the scenes, I'd say no to a Diddy event, and the next week I'd find out that lit project suddenly wasn't greenlit anymore. He stated this didn't happen once or twice, it became a trend. Diddy didn't have to threaten people, he had systems that did it for him. PR folks, bloggers, producers, he knew who to call, how to create problems arise out of thin air, and opportunities evaporate just as quickly. Will testify about one specific event in 2013 when he was lined up for a huge international campaign with premium company. We were in final negotiation. I'd already shot the first lookbook. Then they dumped me out of nowhere. I never got a reason, but 2 weeks later, I was invited to another Diddy event, and when I rejected, the phone calls began, and supposed gossip blogs posted things about me that were oddly specific, stuff only someone with access could have planted. He said it was psychological warfare, and you start to feel like you're crazy or paranoid. But when you see the patterns and punishments, you understand you're not dreaming, that you're being boxed in. Will informed the court that he knew other celebrities going through similar things. Some of them are sitting silent right now. Some of them have contracts that prevent them from speaking, and some of them are terrified they'll be exposed in the same way. So he turned to Diddy and said bluntly, "You didn't just collect people, you managed them." And everyone knew exactly what he meant. Will didn't stop at the manipulation. He described how Diddy's grasp wasn't simply over artists, stretching into Hollywood's entire foundation. You couldn't go onto a major stage without touching shoulders with someone he helped put there. Said he once attended a charity banquet in 2016, when behind the scenes, high-powered personalities from music, entertainment, politics, and technology were all thanking Puff, as if he was the glue that held everything together. I observed one executive from a streaming platform offer him a USB disc and say, "Only you have," though Will didn't reveal what was on the disc, but he said it proved what he'd feared. Diddy wasn't just networking, he was gatekeeping, and he detailed occasions when he watched other celebrities, rappers, and public personalities appear abnormally deferential around Diddy, as if they were attempting to keep in his good graces, laughing too much, submitting to him in every chat. I discovered a lot of people weren't his friends. They were his survivors. Can testify that one reason he stayed silent for so long was because he felt speaking up would permanently blackball him. But then I learned, already been blackballed. Silently, there is no formal blacklist, only rumors. Doubt and doors closing, he said the only reason he kept relevant at all, because his audience, the public, wouldn't let him disappear. That's the part Puff didn't control the people. He stated how over time he began to notice differently. He began studying past film images from events, after parties, press junkets, seeing how frequently Diddy's presence loomed behind the situations he was always there. If not in person, then in force, and then Will said the moment that altered everything. Will's voice sank to a softer, deeper tone. I sat quiet for 20 years, convincing myself that it wasn't happening, or that it wasn't happening to me. But then the audio surfaced, and he stated, when he initially heard about hidden audio records being played in court, he didn't believe it. Then I received a call, not from the prosecution, not from a journalist. Someone I used to trust told me, "Will you be on one of those tapes they played yesterday? People are talking." He recounted feeling like the floor had dropped from under him. I had no idea such a cassette existed, but once I acknowledged it might be real, things began to connect. Will said he stayed up all night, revisiting memories of the party, the blackout, the envelope, the blocked numbers. It was all a system. I was one of the victims, and he indicated that the breaking point wasn't fear but shame. I realized that if I didn't speak now, my silence would become legacy, and I couldn't live with that. My kids are going to read these headlines. My grandchildren might see them, so I had to speak. He told the court. I informed the prosecution. Team, I'm ready. Whatever you need, whatever questions you have, I'll answer them. Glanced at the jurors. I wasn't simply coerced, I was played, videotaped, and used. Then he looked at Diddy again, this time with a harder tone, and you knew precisely. He would close his eyes for a while before speaking again, as if ready to relive something he had sought to forget. When the prosecution asked if I wanted to hear the tape, I hesitated, he said, but I knew I had to. They played it behind closed doors with no press, no jury, just the judge and the lawyers. And Will, I heard myself laughing. Will remarked slowly. It was hollow. It wasn't genuine. I sounded intoxicated or drugged. He described the background of the audio, slow music, low voices, the occasional applause or shout. Then I heard Diddy clearly say something like, "That's how we break them in." And then I heard my name. They were saying my name while doing things I don't even want to repeat. He said it wasn't only embarrassing, it was. There's a difference between being ashamed and being stripped of your humanity. That tape took something away from me. Will's voice trembled. For the first time, he looked down and collected himself before saying, I never consented to being recorded. I never agreed to be a part of that, but he added that for years he couldn't figure out why he taped it and saved it, either to use or just to keep. He would feel instant anxiousness when particular names were mentioned, which is why he had panic attacks during ordinary interviews. Now I know it's because I wasn't insane, was recalling something I didn't want to remember. Will added that hearing the recording pushed him to confront everything. The manipulation, the grooming, betrayal from those who stood by and watched, and he stated, what shocked him the most wasn't what he heard, but what I didn't recall. He looked at the jury and said, if you want to know how powerful Diddy is, ask yourself how someone like me could keep silent for 20. By the time Will's statement hit the public, it was too late for Hollywood to do any damage. Control the tapes. From Court became viral before the BAFE could even call reset. Hashtags exploded. Our Will Speaks, our Freak Off tape, our Diddy file, and for the first time the public saw Will as a survivor rather than a polished A-lister. He remarked, I knew. Once I spoke, things would go ugly, but I had no idea how fast. He told how within 24 hours after testifying, he lost 2 planned brand endorsements. Another studio suspended marketing for a film he had already shot, but he said it didn't matter because I'd already lost something more priceless years ago, my voice. He said the calls, text messages from actors, producers, and directors began to arrive, some congratulating him, some warning him, and one saying, you don't know who you just declared war on. Another said, you've made yourself radioactive. Revealed a few names without full information, claiming legal reasons, but nodded when the prosecution questioned about people like Grange. This isn't simply a Diddy problem. It's an economy built on silence, and everyone has been dealing in that currency. He also stated that he felt others had dirt on him. I know that if more film comes out, they'll try to depict me as unstable and broken. Let them know that I'm not here to protect myself anymore. To safeguard the truth, he informed the court that he expected retaliation, denials, and Diddy's legal team to claim he was making it all up, saying, "I'm bitter they'll claim I'm covering something, but I ask you this. If I was lying, why did I wait this long, especially now that I have more to lose than ever?" Closed that part of the testimony with a sentence that stunned the audience. Sometimes the truth comes late, but it still hits like thunder for his closing statement. The court permitted Will to speak directly to Diddy. He stood from the witness chair, stepped a few steps closer, and looked him in the eye. "You made an empire out of," he began by saying. "You called it success, culture, and love. But all you built was fear." Diddy didn't answer. He sat immobile, his lawyer whispering in his ear. Will didn't blink. "I witnessed what you did to those girls, and I saw what you did to me. I heard what you said about me when you thought I wasn't listening. You broke people for sport." Will took something from his pocket, an old snapshot. "This was me in 2004, shortly before the first party. That's the man I used to be." He held it up to the court, and I haven't seen him in years. Will turned to the jury. "If you believe this is simply about Cassie or myself or one night at some mansion, you're missing the point. This is about a network of power designed to silence truth, and if we don't pull it down, it will keep going." Then he faced Diddy one last time. "And you once claimed nobody parties like Diddy, so nobody lies like you either." He walked back to the stand, packed up his belongings, and fled the courtroom without looking back, or he sat there pale and unblinking. When Will Smith came down from the witness stand, his fingers were shaking because for the first time in decades, he wasn't the one directing the room, did not appear like a man who had gained anything. He looked like someone who had finally stopped fleeing. The courtroom was still tense, almost unsure how to breathe again. Even the judge looked upset. Several of the jurors had tears in their eyes, and Diddy, for the first time in the entire trial, appeared to have. Will didn't talk to the press when he exited. He didn't wave or posture as he walked out the front of the courthouse with his head held high, but his shoulders held the weight of 20 years of trauma. When reporters were asked if he felt relieved, he reportedly responded, "Relief isn't the correct term, it's just finished." But outside the courtroom, the world was only beginning to respond, and Hollywood went into hushed. Terror executives canceled meetings, agencies delayed transactions, directors and producers who had previously hailed Will Smith suddenly found their phones ringing with inquiries. The same folks who earlier said he's family were suddenly offering boilerplate professions of deep concern and dedication to truth. Behind closed-door crisis teams were activated, and PR firms sent internal memos, advising clients to disassociate themselves publicly from any previous links with Mr. Combs. While many tried to pretend they were startled, the internet was already doing what it does best, resurrecting receipts and old recordings of Diddy brushing shoulders with top-tier celebrities' parties, where everyone appeared too uncomfortable to be merely partying. Interviews where visitors danced around awkwardly. Video footage of Will years ago being interviewed, and obviously recoiling as Diddy's name was mentioned, and most sadly, dozens of excerpts from the Fresh during the Prince era, while supporters now think Will looked like he was smiling through something. They weren't just stunned, they were outraged. Will had to carry this alone, outraged that for years the whispers were termed conspiracy, and upset that the system had remained silent for so long. Yet Will did not remain in hiding the day following his testimony. He put a solitary message online, a black and white photo of himself as a young actor in 1993. Standing on a film set smiling into the sun, the caption said, "He didn't know what was coming, but he made it through. I'm proud of him, no hashtags, no name." Dropped simply that the response was instant. Millions of shares, tens of thousands of comments, celebs, activists, and ordinary people hailing him for his. Survivors of abuse, particularly men, swamped the site with their own confessions. "You gave us a voice," one said. "If Will can speak, so can we." Meanwhile, back inside the court, Diddy's staff scrambled as whispers flew that additional subpoenas were being issued just to musicians and assistants, but to executives at label distribution companies, including media conglomerates. Will's testimony was more than merely personal, it had cracked the dam. And now, the deluge was approaching. Whispers murmured more. Tapes existed in both audio and visual formats. Some of the film features other public people. The court sealed these. Currently, although according to insiders, if any of them leaked, the industry would be turned upside down, and Will did not return. He avoided interviews and started working immediately. He made appearances but wasn't. Hidden insiders say he's been spending time with his children focused on rebuilding. What matters, a pal told Variety. Anonymously, he is healing now for the first time in years. He is not pretending. Before the court adjourned the judge issued a remark that day. We took even the journalists off guard. Today's hearing was more than just testimony. There was a reckoning in this court. Acknowledges the courage required to deliver the final shot of the day. It wasn't Diddy. It wasn't even Will. The jurors sat motionless, absorbing what they'd just heard. In that silence, one thing became evident. The age of stillness was